Welcome. I'm joined here in the law offices of Parent LLP with attorney Anthony E. Parent and attorney Robert V. Hansen. Today we want to talk about an interesting decision that came out of the United States Courts of Appeals for the District of Columbia. It was Ori Eshel and Linda Coriel Eshel versus the IRS on appeals from the U.S. Tax Court regarding taxation on international income. That's sort of the really complicated way of saying it. We want to break it down and make it a little easier to understand. So we'll start with the tax background and sort of, Robert, why don't you talk a little bit about foreign taxes and the credits that you can take?
Sure. So a U.S. person can take as a credit against his U.S. taxes he paid to a foreign jurisdiction. So if you worked in France and you paid income taxes, that's the important thing, by the way, income taxes to the French government, on your U.S. return for that year, you can take as a credit those taxes you paid to the French government. There's limitations and everything like that, but that's the general idea. Like I said before, it's for income taxes. So things like payroll taxes, sales taxes, those don't get counted. But those do get covered by other things like totalization agreements, other types of treaties or agreements between us and another country that creates some type of rules for if you were living and working in France, you can pay French payroll taxes, you can pay U.S. payroll taxes. There's kind of tie-breaking rules for that kind of thing. If a tax is covered by a totalization agreement, you generally cannot take that as a credit against your U.S. taxes.
Got it.
And so in this case, if it's out, it's good. If it's in the totalization, that's bad. And I just want to comment on what payroll taxes are. Most people don't think about it in the U.S., but to put to help you understand, Social Security, Medicare, those are payroll taxes. Those aren't actually taxes. Those aren't actually income tax, even though they are based upon what your income is. That's why it gets a little confusing. So countries like France, as in this case shows, also have income taxes, but also have a Social Security taxes as well. So there are payroll taxes in France. It looks like they did copy from us somewhat, unfortunately. They did get a lot of ideas from the IRS on how to tax people.
Yep. Now, totalization agreement, we'll call them TAs moving forward, just easier. They do have provisions to cover new domestic laws that get passed after the TA comes into effect.
Correct.
Okay. So, for example, if France and the U.S. enter into a TA in 1988, and then it covers French payroll taxes ABC, but in 1998, France enacted payroll tax D, the TA has a provision to incorporate French payroll tax D, so it gets covered by the treaty.
In theory, yes.
Sort of confusing. But,
well said. Said.
But now the confusing part is if it gets amended or supplemented. And we'll get into that in a little bit.
Right.
Now, let's talk about this particular case. The U.S. person, in this case, the Eschels, they paid French payroll taxes. France and U.S. entered into their TA around the late 1980s?
Yep.
Okay. Then there was payroll taxes enacted afterwards in the 90s.
Yep.
Okay. So the Eschels paid French income tax and payroll taxes, including the additional payroll tax. And they were like, wait a second, that's a lot of tax.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So they decided to take as a credit against her U.S. taxes the French income and payroll taxes paid.
Correct.
But the U.S. said no.
The IRS initially disallowed the entire credit.
Which is kind of baffling.
Which was wrong.
Yeah.
The taxpayers later pursued administrative remedies, and at some point the IRS said, okay, fine, you're right. You get to take the income taxes as a credit, but you still don't get these two new payroll-like taxes as a credit as well.
And then they were like, what's up with that?
Yes.
Exactly.
And that's when they appealed.
That's right.
So that's when they ended up in tax court, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm glad they did this. I'm glad they had the resources to sort of stand up and fight.
Yeah, or the stomach for it, because I don't know if this was actually an economic decision. And, great work all around, because, this will, they're battling not just for themselves, but a whole other bunch of people can benefit from their hard work.
Yes. So now we're going to get into the tax court. The tax court then ruled for the IRS, said the newer French payroll taxes were covered by the TA.
Which is bad for the taxpayers.
Right. Tax court said that the two new payroll taxes were amended and supplemented. And that's where we start getting into the why the heck did they do this way sort of reasoning. So basically, did they just use the dictionary?
They did. In trying to figure out whether or not these two new payroll taxes, we're calling payroll taxes, right? If these two new payroll taxes amended or supplemented the existing payroll taxes that the French government has. they turned to, I believe, 4 dictionaries, and they kind of looked up the dictionary definitions of amend and supplement. And they looked at that and said, well, according to the general definitions, yes, these 2 new taxes amend and supplement the enumerated list of taxes that are in the TA. And so if they amend and supplement, then they're covered by the TA, which means that which means they are not eligible for to be taken as a credit against your U.S. taxes.
Okay. So now at this point, did they appeal again? And that's how it ended up in federal court?
Correct. From tax court, they appealed and went to district court.
Okay. Okay. So holding reverse and remand, Anthony, what's that all about?
The decision is reversed.
Okay.
That it's not in the conclusion that it is in the TA is reversed. However, it's not a clean reverse. The holding isn't okay. We're actually going to say it's outside the TA. Unfortunately for the taxpayer, while it's better than the decision being upheld, it goes back to tax court for the tax court to say, well, what we want you to do is we want you to figure out what the French would rule this. That's what we want to know, not how we would rule it, but rather how would the French rule this? Would they say this amends or supplements the 1980s taxes? That's what's
But why would the French ever be in a position to have to do that?
I don't know when that issue would come up and be a justiciable issue in France. So you're going to have to kind of guess how the French would interpret this and what sort of, I think, I don't know if the word's ironic, but we're closing a circle. Our entire legal system is based on the Norman tradition. Norman coming from Normandy, French. All of our legalese is derived from France. Mm-hmm. So we kind of did interpret it, right?
I think it's important to note here that the district court didn't reverse as in trial court says guilty and then they say innocent. Mm-hmm. It's we don't care guilty or not guilty or right or wrong on this, but how you went about deciding that these 2 new French taxes amend and supplement was wrong. We're not saying what the ultimate decision is going to be, but the fact that you went to the dictionary instead of looking to the agreement, to the TA itself, which then would direct you to other places. You didn't do that, tax court. All you did, you went off to the side, you went to the dictionary. So that was wrong. Do it again. And do it how we're telling you to do it.
Why wouldn't the federal tax court just do it? Why are they sending it back to, why wouldn't the federal court do it? Why are they sending it back to tax?
Either they didn't feel like it wasn't the issue before them, probably a little bit of both at some point. Maybe they could have, but basically saying this is something that you have to figure out at tax court. So tax court, go back and do this and fix this.
Okay, so it's still sort of an open book.
It's still sort of an open question, yes. Now, the tax court didn't just look at the dictionary definition. It looked up the dictionary definition. Amend supplement means this. Okay, I think that makes sense to us, this definition. And they said, and also these kind of 2 new payroll taxes, they're not issued the same way as the income tax. They're administered by the people who do the French payroll taxes by the same. So it looks and smells like a payroll tax to us. The definition seems to say that this is what technically counts as amend supplement. So it's covered. Tax court said, district court said, tax court, you did it wrong. That wasn't the right way to do it. Do it the way we're saying.
Wow. All right. So it's not necessarily the best news for taxpayers, but it's not bad news yet?
If you look at it and you say, hey, they reversed tax court, great. Now we finally can get these 2 taxes recognized. You're jumping the gun. Okay. We're not there yet. So now the tax court may in the end say the same, may come to the same substantive end as they already did. Yep. They just have to go down the right street. Tax court, you went down Dictionary Street, you have to go down French Law Street.
Okay. Even though you're both going to end up at the tower in the center of town.
Right. At the Starbucks, meeting at the Starbucks, drinking your cafe au lait.
Yes. All right, so we will continue to monitor this.
That's right.
So make sure you subscribe to our channel. We'll be doing updates on this as we get more information. If you do have any tax issues, don't hesitate to contact us, 888-727-8796. You can also email us, info@irsmedic.com. Visit irsmedic.com for more information. You can like and comment below. For more commentary on this case, you can watch our YouTube video, Are You Smarter Than a Circuit Court Judge? Understanding the Foreign Tax Credit. We'll put a link in the description below. Thanks for watching. IRSMedic, the law offices of Parent LLP. Real tax attorneys for tough tax problems.